Guys, I talk about how to get about 5% on your money in T-bills, money markets, and CDs. But if you are holding credit card debt, you are losing about 20% on your money every year. That's like being penny wise and pound foolish, like they say. Now, with the talk of the debt ceiling being in the news, most people know that we owe $31.4 trillion dollars in US debt, which comes out to about $94,000 for every single American in the US. But it's even worse than that because Americans' personal credit card debt is almost at $1 trillion dollars. And a lot of Americans are now using credit card as like a savings account. They're using it to buy the necessities that they need every day, like food, transportation, and things like that. So they are digging a bigger and bigger hole for themselves that is going to be a lot harder to get out of the more they do it. So I want to look at how bad it's getting. And I want to talk about the one kind of glitch that people have in their head when they think about credit card debt and their savings or checking account money. It is really crazy. And I think credit card companies know this and take advantage of this to get people to keep big credit card balances going forward. So let's take a look. So this article on Zero Hedge says battered by inflation, 90 million Americans struggle paying bills as credit card usage spikes. And so they say 89 million American adults, or about 38.5%, were found to experience some form of difficulty in covering expenses between April 26 and May 8, according to Bloomberg. And this is up from 34% in 2022 and 26.7% during the same period in 2021. So in 2021, things were a little easier, maybe because inflation hadn't kicked in yet, plus all of the pandemic money that the government was giving out. So only about 26% or so had problems paying for their usual household expenses. Now it's like 38%. And so it's not hard to see why people are having a problem. These are the US real average weekly earnings. So these are in 1982 to 1984 US dollar, constant dollar amount, year over year change. So you hear that we have a tight labor market and people are making more money. That may be partially true, but when inflation is running far higher than the increase in your wages, the net effect of your average weekly earnings is that they become negative. And so the last reading is minus 1.6%, but they have been trending negative since about the beginning of 2021. And so because of this, we went from people paying down their revolving credit during the pandemic because they weren't going out and spending, plus they had stimulus money, to now people increasing their revolving credit because they're using their credit cards as part of the money they need to survive day to day. So this is a huge increase to about 17 billion from the month before, which was at about 5 billion. And so the people who are struggling the most tend to have lower incomes, and those are a lot of the states in the South and also California and Nevada as well. So in this survey, they said that 2.7 million more households were relying on credit cards to cover expenses. And that number was already pretty big to begin with. 22.4 million people used credit cards or loans for expenses in 2022 versus 25.1 million in the same period in 2023. Now, the banks and the credit card companies and the places that want you to spend money want you to believe that having a credit card balance is normal. So much so that there's actually articles saying, should you pay off your credit card balance every month, as if this is controversial. Now, they say that only 35% of cardholders are paying their full balance, according to a November 2022 survey by LendingTree, and credit card debt is at an all-time high of 986 billion. Now, according to Google's Bard, which is their AI version, The average credit card balance in Germany is 1,500 euros or about $1,650, whereas the average credit card balance in the US is 5,500. And only 36% of Germans over the age of 15 have a credit card compared to 62% of Americans. And 60% of Germans pay off their credit card balance in full each month compared to only 30% of Americans. So why am I including the Germans in this? Just to give you some perspective, because Germans are known to be frugal and pay for cash or debit card for a lot of their things, and they get by just fine without racking up huge amounts of credit card debt. So it is not a normal thing for all countries to have huge amounts of credit card debt. And if we look at that average US credit card debt balance amount of 5,500, it's actually more than that, because there are about 200 million credit card holders in the US. Of those, about 35% have no credit card debt. They pay it off every month. So that means about 130 million Americans carry credit card debt. If you take the $1 trillion in credit card debt divided by 130 million Americans, that's about $7,700 credit card debt for each American that carries a balance. And the average interest rate is about 20% now. So that means you're paying about $1,500 a year in interest, or about $120 a month in interest if you carry a balance on your credit card. And it's a little worse as well, because while you're out there looking for the best money market rate for 4.5%, 4.7%, 5% CDs, right? That interest that you get is taxable. You have to pay tax on that. So even if you're only paying 20% on that, you're netting, let's say, 4%. However, that credit card interest at 20%, you're paying that with after-tax money. So you need to make even more than the 20% interest that they charge you. You need to make about 25% to pay off that 20% interest bill per year. Now, this is where that weird glitch comes in for a lot of people, especially since they purposely do not teach you about interest and credit cards in school. Why? Because they want a whole flock of sheep that they can continue to shear for that interest year after year. But the reality is that most people that have a credit card balance have money in the bank, whether a checking account, a savings account, a 401k, a Roth IRA, something like that. So why don't they just take that money that they have in their savings and pay off all or as much of the 20% interest credit card that they can? Well, the number one answer people will give you if you tell them that is that they need to have some emergency money just in case. Now, I've talked to many people who were in a situation like this, and I tried to show them how to think about this rationally, and it did not register, right? Somebody had, let's say, $3,000 in credit card debt that they were paying 20% interest on, and this was even before interest rates shot up to 5%. So they were getting like 1% in the bank, or maybe even nothing in a checking account. And I told them, take that $3,000 in your checking account, the only money you had, or let's say you had $3,000 or $4,000 in a checking account. Take that, pay down the credit card debt, and you're saving yourself 20 or even 25% a year on interest because of you're paying with after-tax money, let's say. And no matter how many times I tried to show them that that is the correct way to do things, it just doesn't click with a lot of people, because the first thing they say is, what if I need some emergency money? And the first thing that I say is, well, you have a credit card that you could take out a cash advance on if you need it. But when was the last time you needed to take a cash advance on your credit card for an emergency, like a water heater goes out or a big car repair or something like that? For most people, it's not that often. But even if it does happen, it's there if you need it. But in the meantime, you're not paying 20% a year on interest on your credit card debt while you're getting 1%, 2%, 5% interest on your savings account or checking account. So guys, if you're spending all your time looking around to get the best interest rate on a CD or a money market or a T-bill while you're holding credit card debt that charges you 20% or so interest a year, you're doing yourself a big disservice. And now I know there's going to be some people in the comments that say things like, well, I can't pay off my credit card because I need it for just to pay my food expenses or something like that. And that could be the case. And that could be the case for a lot of people. But I will say that you didn't get there in one day by just getting a credit card today and then putting a Rolls Royce on it or something like that. And now you have this huge debt. It's incremental. It starts a little bit, a little bit. You take a vacation that you don't fully pay it off. You buy some clothes that you like. You buy the newest iPhone, whatever. And then the credit card balance builds up and builds up. Oh, I'll just pay the minimum amount this month, but next month I'll catch up. And so the credit card companies know this, and they keep enticing you with more and more offers. The advertisers know this, and so they just keep making more ads on how great you'll be, how Instagram famous you'll be if you have the latest clothes and all these things. They're all tricks to get your money, put you on credit card debt, and it's basically enslaving you. So there is no magic bullet. If you find yourself with all this debt that you can't pay off, you have to do it a little at a time, work more, buy less, reduce your expenses, that kind of thing. Now, you'll never get rich just from saving money, but you sure as hell could go broke by spending money. And there's no limit to how much money you can spend. Go look at the professional athletes that make hundreds of millions of dollars in their career, and a year or two after they leave their sport, they are bankrupt. So guys, don't fall into that trap. Thanks for watching.